Russ here, Russ Busey Music. We're doing a series of videos on pentatonic scales and how to use them, especially for us guitar players. We like pentatonic scales because they contain just the right amount of information to sound good, but not so much information that we can't remember how to play them, right? So that's why we like them. So here, what I want to talk about is how to add a little something, a little spice to your pentatonic scales. You know, when you look at a picture when you drew it in kindergarten and there was no shading around it, this is like as you get older and you learn to shade in so it looks like the wall's going back. So what I'm talking about here is using chromatic notes, which are just the notes in between the notes. All a chromatic note is just the notes between. So if we were to take like the A minor pentatonic scale, I always do the A minor because everybody knows this one. So let's just say for just the general sake of it, this note to this note. So I can add the notes in between them. So all I did was play the notes in between them. The target notes, the notes that are going to be more important, are the notes that we hit in the scale. So if I'm playing like an A kind of blues thing, just do you hear this background, right? So just pretend you're hearing this going on in the background, right? And later maybe I'll put that in there. So if I want to play a line over it, you guys that play pentatonic scales know a lot, and I hear a lot of students say this to me over the years. Man, I just keep running out of licks because I'm playing the same licks over and over. One of the things you can do is any note around this note. So here's an A, and this is an A minor pentatonic. So all I did was play the note behind it. Doesn't matter. Some of you guys are going to say, well, it's not in the right key. You're right. It's definitely not in the right key. Just like when you play a violin and you slide into a note. Or if you're using a slide. They are not in the right key. That's what creates the tension. Keep in mind, for you guys when you're playing a lead, singers slide in and out of notes all the time. Most of the time when we get to play a guitar solo in a song is when the singer shuts up, right? We're waiting for the singer to shut up so we can play a guitar solo. And then that gives, the people who don't like guitar solos an opportunity to go to the bathroom while they're watching us play. So that's why we do this, right? So, boy, how accurate is that, guitar dudes? But, so anyway, what I'm talking about here is, how do we spice it up a little bit by using chromatic notes? You can't just sit on this note, right? But if I want to take a note, so let's just take the pentatonic scale, and each one of these, so that creates a straight line on the 5th fret. So it's 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. I'm going to slide from 4 to 5. Now, all I did, I gave myself these 3 extra notes, none of which are in the right key. But listen, that's what it sounds like. If you can do it with a chord, if you can go, then you can do it with a line, right? So, now, same thing here. That's an A, so below it, you'll hear the Pink Panther theme. That's what the Pink Panther theme literally is that's a little chromatic. Listen. That's all he did, was add those little blues chromatic notes in there. Makes it swing. You hear that little thing in there? So what you want to do is make sure you're swinging. Make sure that they are just notes that you throw in. But with any of your pentatonic scales, listen, I'm going to play a couple of lines without without chromatic notes, okay? Sounds fine. Now I'm going to add in some random chromatic notes. Now, all they are going to be is passing notes. Passing notes means I'm not going to sit on them very long. They're getting me from point A to point B. So, what I did, walk down through here. Now, as long as I don't sit on them for very long, I get to use all of those. So, what I want with your playing is to spice it up a little bit. And again, think of this sort of like shading when you draw a picture. The pentatonic scale is the barn. The chromatic notes are the shading so that the wall looks like it's going back. So it looks like it's leading to somewhere. This is how you get depth in a picture. This is art through sound. That's what this is. So to get depth in this picture, you use shading the same way. You come into the notes by giving it a setup into the note, shading yourself into the note, shading yourself out of the note. So you can do this very simply, and every one of you who knows how to play, all you guys and gals who play anything like this, you already know how to do that. What I want you to do is to add, does that note sound wrong? Yes, it definitely does. Now, I'm going to put it in context. Doesn't sound wrong then, right? Same here. So, I want you to add pentatonic notes chromatic notes into your pentatonic scales. And you can keep in mind there's 5 notes in this scale. So, everywhere that you're playing the same scale, so the 5 positions. All of those 5 positions that I just played, and I did them fast. You can look those up anywhere on the internet, in internet land. They're all the same 5 notes. That's what they are. So you can add these. So that's what this is about today. I want you to experiment playing a note that's not in your scale. Listen to it. The best thing you can do is possibly just kind of record yourself playing a 1-chord vamp. And I believe playing over a 1-chord vamp, and I think it's very underrated. Everybody kind of gets blues backing tracks online or whatever. A lot of times I have my student playing over 1 chord, because when you have a 3-chord, like 12-bar blues going behind you as a backing track, you can play the same lick, and as the harmony moves around, thusly I mean the different chords in that blues progression, it makes your lines sound way more interesting because the harmony is changing, and so it's going to give it a context and a color that sounds really good, even if you just play the same licks over and over. But if you get good at playing interesting lines over 1 chord, then by the use of these chromatic notes, then you can create interest in between, in spite of whatever the backing track is doing for you. Your lines become more interesting. The way to make them more interesting, certainly one of the great ways to make them more interesting, jazz musicians have known this for years. I mean, that's the whole idea behind, like playing this chord to this chord. Another exercise I have some of my students do is, there's notes in between notes, and that's what jazz does, is it takes notes that aren't in the key that you're playing in and adds a tension, like so I'm going from a G7 to an A minor. If you listen, now that's just a G to an A minor, right? But listen what happens when I do this. Well, certainly I can't stop on that chord, but there's your payoff, right? And I won't get into the technical aspect of what I'm doing with the chord, but notice that I'm playing chromatic notes. This is a G sharp. Well, if it works in a chord context to write songs, certainly it works in a lead context. Remember, all the stuff that we play during these leads and stuff on these songs, whatever note I'm playing when there's a chord going by, the audience hears the totality of it. So, if the band behind us is playing an A minor chord and you play this is what the audience hears. And that's a tension. But watch when I wrap it up. So, it's just like when you cut anything in the layers, I think sometimes we get into, as guitar players or as musicians generally speaking, we're thinking of what's going in to playing. Just that. We're just thinking of what's going into it. Everyone else in the room is experiencing what's coming out of it, okay? So that means if there's a band playing a chord and we're playing a lead over that chord, they're going to hear whatever the band's playing and you aren't going to be separate from them. Whatever you're playing is going to be what the audience hears. So if you create a little bit of a tension, I think we start flipping through licks and we forget how important each note is in those licks. Pentatonic scale is 5 notes. That's how important it is. 5 notes are really important. So that means 1 note's really important. So if I'm picking 1 note from my pentatonic to create a chromatic lick, very tense. So if I add that into a lick, that creates that tension and release. That's what I want you to do with chromatic notes. I want you to just find them, play and I'll get back to what I said a minute ago, playing over those 1 chord vamps. Don't let the chords changes help you make interesting lines. Our job really is to make interesting lines over the chord that's happening right now. Not because there's a chord change to help us, but because there's just interest in the line that we're playing. A lot of times I think we forget how important each note is in the chords in the lines that we're playing. Each note's super important. You know, you think of the great melodies. All that is a chord. It's a major chord. If I change 1 note in it, what happens? Right? So 1 note changing it is so huge, and we are replacing the melody. I want you to think about that as lead guitar players or lead sax players or whatever you are. We are replacing the most important part of a song, which is the melody. Every single decision we make affects the outcome or what the audience hears, not what we're putting in, but what's coming out. So what I want you to do is very colorfully realize you're playing lines that need to be somewhat as important as the melody and the song. One of the ways we can create tension and release in those things, and that's what music is to everyone. Ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba. You know, da 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 da. Here's the release. Bum bum bum. That's your release. We need to create tension and release. That's what makes a story interesting to tell. That's why a joke has a punchline. That's why a movie has some suspense or some tension. You know, if it's a love story of a movie, it's them building up. You know, they keep missing each other. And then at the end, they love each other. Whatever it is. You know, a movie about nothing, about you getting up in the morning, going to work, having a nice day at work, having some coffee, coming home and getting a good night's rest. That's a great day. But it's not an interesting story. If you hit a drifter in your car on your way to work, it becomes an interesting story. Then you try to cover it up, right? Then it's Fargo, right? Or whatever. So what I want you to do is create some interest in the lines that you're playing. Create some tension so that you can release that tension. Certainly one of the ways we can do that, and I'll just play it out by doing some of this. So here's the pentatonic scale. Here's the pentatonic scale with some tension and release. Russ PC Music. Thank you, guys.
Hit a drifter.